You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristadoulou, and with Monday Night Football in the books and Week 7 wrapped up, we're diving in, taking a look at power rankings as we look forward to week number 8 of the season, going through the tier list worst to first as we do every Tuesday. So as always, I invite you all to comment down below. Let me hear from you, your thoughts on my rankings, maybe some of your own rankings, anything you agree or disagree with, or maybe just some thoughts you had from this past weekend's game, some takeaways, some things we may have learned about some of the teams, whether they're at the top or the bottom of the league right now. But as we always do, we'll take a quick look at last week's rankings so you can all get a quick refresher as to where everyone stood going into week 7. And now as we turn our attention to week number 8, we'll clear the board, reset, and work our way from the bottom up to the top, beginning with the Probably Picks top 5 category. Of course, at the very bottom, as they have sat for quite some time now, the 0-7 New York Jets, followed by the Tennessee Titans, Dolphins, Saints, and then rounding out the category, we have ourselves the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know if I really have too much to say about the New York Jets at this point. They basically have one or two, if you look at their schedule, winnable games left, and it's maybe some sort of split between the Dolphins, the Jaguars, and the Saints. And the Saints have been a really tough out for a lot of teams this year. I almost feel like even if it will be at that later point in the season, they're not exactly a shoe-in by any means. And then you have, of course, the Jaguars, who feel like maybe they're coming back down to reality right now. The Dolphins are obviously a mess, and we'll get to them in a second here, but the defense has at least shown some signs of life the last couple of weeks, but this team looks lost, I think is the best way to put it right now. The Titans right in front of them. The unfortunate reality is, between the roster construction, the injuries, being devoid of talent, nobody happy with ownership, there's a lot of dysfunction coming out of Tennessee right now, and this is the end result of all of that. It sounds like the only two people safe from a trade conversation at this point are Jeffrey Simmons and Cam Ward, rightfully so, between how important those two guys are, both to the offense and the defensive side of the football. But it seems like everything is very much up in the air right now as far as where this team stands. And I don't foresee very many more wins for this team going forward as well. They basically got handed the one win that they have, and that's kind of like the only reason they are arguably in front of the Jets right now. If the Cardinals didn't hand them a win, Tennessee has a strong case to be that bottom team as well. Dolphins above them. I don't know what's worse about Miami right now, whether it's the defense, the on-field play of Tua Tagovailoa, the Mike McDaniel post-game press conferences, or the fact that it doesn't sound like they're going to be making a change for anything, whether it's quarterback, head coach, nothing. It sounds like nothing is changing. Out of all those things, I really don't know what is worse for Miami right now, but they are in a bad way right now. Sounds like Darren Waller is week to week with an injury that he sustained during the game this past week that seemed like it might have been a little bit worse. So, I mean, I guess there is some light at the end of that tunnel for whatever that is worth, but this team is just dead to rights right now. And then the Saints right above them, like I said, weekly tough out for every opponent that they go up against. It was a bit of an absolute meltdown game for Spencer Rattler, who up until this point in the season had been really good taking care of the football, but succumbing to what a lot of people are touting as the league's number one defense in the Cleveland Browns. It's one of those things that it was kind of bound to happen eventually, and here we now are. And then the Raiders to round out the category. If you want to argue that maybe they belong lower on this list after the way this past week played out, I definitely think there is a case to be made. But a 31-0 loss where Kansas City pulled their starters in the midpoint of the third quarter as Patrick Mahomes and company just absolutely had their way with them. And then ultimately you have them kneeling outside of the final 2-minute mark. Not a good performance, and I don't really know where this team's going either. The bottom of the barrel right now in the NFL feels very much like the bottom of the barrel, and for good reason. Taking a look at our next category here, we have ourselves the Swirling the Toilet category, those teams that are Down but not quite out, but are getting pretty close. The Arizona Cardinals at the bottom of this list here, followed by the Cleveland Browns. The Baltimore Ravens sit above them, the Texans, the Giants, and then the Cincinnati Bengals rounding out this category. We'll start with those Cardinals, and now on a 5-game losing skid. Injuries are obviously really starting to kind of pull this team apart. This is now the second week that they've gone without having their starting quarterback in Kyler Murray, among some other injuries that seem to pop up each and every single week as the season progresses for this team. Not a good look for where they are, and a lot of I talked about this when they lost that game to the Tennessee Titans, where I basically said that could potentially be a turning point in the wrong direction for this team that ultimately kills a franchise for the season. And there is a real good chance, based off what we're getting out of Arizona, even though they're putting up a fight, it's not like they're getting absolutely decimated. They were in it to the end against that Green Bay Packers team, but you're still coming up with losses, and moral victories do not do very much for teams in the NFL, no matter how hard you want to spin it in a positive direction. It's one of those things where the Cardinals are trending in the absolute wrong direction right now. And aside from the Jets, I believe they boast I believe it's the worst streak in the NFL right now for losses, if I'm not mistaken. There might be another team or two in the mix there, but that's not the company you want to be in. So we'll see where Arizona goes from here. Hopefully Kyler Murray is back sooner rather than later. But after a really strong couple of performances from Jacoby Brissett, or I guess strong last week, fine performance this week against Green Bay. Again, another team that if I was willing to allow more than 5 teams in the probably picks top 5 category, I'd probably have Arizona slotted in there as well. Browns right above them. Defense. This team will go as far as the offense allows it, I guess you could say, because the defense is phenomenal, and a lot of people are looking at them as one of the best defenses in the NFL. You go out and you made that trade with Greg Newsome for Tyson Campbell, and that's already starting to pay off dividends for you. Got yourself a pick 6 from him in this past week. And then on top of that, one thing that I loved that we got from them, leaning on rookie running back Quinshaw Judkins. 25 carries, 3 touchdowns, maybe only 3.4 yards per attempt, but you want to lean on that guy. He is supposed to be the one toting the rock for you coming out of the backfield, and I was happy to see Cleveland lean in on that going into this game. Even if he wasn't necessarily ripping the biggest of runs, they committed to that ground attack, controlled the ball a lot in this game here, and I think it paid off big time, and it ultimately got them a W. Ravens, right above them, did not play this week. Beneficial bye week for you, as you did slide up one spot because teams were moving around above and below you. The Texans at 2-4 now. The O-line is a literal nightmare, and it's very easy to point at C.J. Stroud or maybe some of the receivers or maybe the run game not working, or you can't even really blame the defense right now. And I know some people are starting to get some heat with D'Amico Ryans as well, but it's the O-line. It's so bad. They're not getting push at all in the run game. They're having such a hard time protecting C.J. Stroud. 3 more sacks on the night with another 17 pressures to go on what is a whopping total they already have in both those categories. It's not getting any better, and the defense made a ton of plays for them to at least keep them hanging around in this one and ultimately only lose by a possession. You had the interception off Sam Darnold. You got a pick off the Cooper Kupp trick play. There was opportunities for that defense, and they made some big plays, forced plenty of turnovers to keep you in that contest, but ultimately the O-line is bad and the offense cannot sustain anything. And I think when you look back to like that near sack where CJ Stroud's running for his life and got tackled right in front of the goal line and ultimately didn't get called to safety, but I mean, it was this close. Like, that is basically like a summary of what this offense has looked like when it comes, or offensive line, has looked like when it comes to trying to protect CJ Stroud this year. I'm not saying it's all on them, but there is a lot of it falling there. And CJ Stroud is definitely at fault for some things as well. He's had some tough throws, but even some of the interceptions you're getting from him this year, he's under duress. He has a guy on him. It's not working up front for Houston, and it's a bit of a disaster. Above them, the Giants. We've got to talk about the stat. 1,602-0 for teams that were leading by 18 or more points in the final 6 minutes of a game. I have now personally witnessed the Giants lose a game like this where they allow 33 points in the fourth quarter. And then on top of that, I also got to see the miracle in Meadowlands as that happened as well. I have seen some disastrous losses from the Giants over my tenure as a football fan. And Giants fans, I'm sorry. Brian Daboll's frustration at the end of the game, it's funny because there's a lot that went wrong, and at some point, you have to just like flat out take that ownership on yourself as a head coach. Like, you can't be mother effing what's going on the football field when you can't coach your team to allowing 33 points in a singular quarter of football. Like, that is absolutely ridiculous. Could you imagine if it didn't take Denver until the fourth quarter to actually start moving the football, what the Giants could have actually lost that game by? Like, a lot went wrong. And then the unfortunate side of it as well, you have this young, exciting rookie in Jackson Dart who is making plays happen for you. You have a young, exciting rookie running back in a Cam Scadaboo working behind him as well. Like, there's stuff to be excited about, and then you're blowing games by losing and dropping or allowing 33 points in a singular quarter after leading the literal entire football game. And like, there was even that point where Sean Payton is going at the officials with about 40 seconds left in the game because of penalties being called that ultimately set up the Giants right at the 1 yard line, where you feel like the Broncos are losing this football game and they have a chance to get back in, and you still found a way to give it up. It's just an incredible type of loss. Bengals, Old Man Joe Flacco. And honestly, in a battle of the icy hot bowl, I really hope that is the name for that game going forward into the future when we look back on this. You have Aaron Rodgers, you have Joe Flacco, two 40-plus-year-old quarterbacks here. And for Joe Flacco to come in and figure it out against a Pittsburgh defense who had been really good the last few weeks, he figured it out. Throw to Jamar Chase. Throw to T. Higgins, but make sure you're throwing to Jamar Chase. And when he finishes the game with a franchise record 16 receptions, you have figured out what it means to play quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2025. You have unbelievable playmakers. Get the ball in their hands as quickly as possible. Let them make the plays, and he did just that. Defense continues to be abysmal, and that's going to be the case for Cincinnati going forward. But as long as Joe Flacco just feeds Jamar Chase, get him another Triple Crown, whatever it takes to keep this team afloat while you hope and pray that you get Joe Burrow back at the end of the season and the team still has some sort of shot at the playoffs. Looking at the Jeff Fisher 500 club, those teams floating around that 500 mark. Commanders sitting at the bottom of the list, followed by the Vikings, the Cowboys, the Panthers, the Falcons, the Jaguars, and then rounding out the category is the Chicago Bears. Now, when we look at the Commanders, it's hard to really feel like you can fairly assess this team, at least on the offensive side of the ball, because you came in really behind the eight ball, missing Deebo Samuel and a Terry McLaurin. The defense obviously not holding up to what has looked like a revived passing attack now that CeeDee Lamb is back in the fold, and we'll get in the Cowboys in a second. But unfortunately, with now Jaden Daniels dealing with this hamstring thing, the defense not having literally a singular answer for what Dak Prescott and that offense was doing. And even Javonte Williams was benefiting from the passing game being so wide open. It was opening up running lanes for him as well. This is, again, not the Commanders team that we saw last year. Definitely some struggles here. You're hoping the best for Jaden Daniels, though, because that is really what the season hinges on right now, is his health and availability. And a hamstring injury for a more mobile quarterback like him is definitely not something you want. Someone whose game is only elevated to those heights that only certain guys can reach because of his mobility. Fingers crossed, hoping for the best on him there, because it's not a great situation for Washington right now. And again, it's hard to really feel like I can even fairly evaluate Washington right now with Jaden Daniels getting hurt in that game, and on top of that, you go in without your top two wide receiver targets. It's just, and I know it's a bad defense in Dallas, and you can say what you want about it, but at some point when you're missing so many key guys, it doesn't matter. It's still the NFL at the end of the day. Vikings right above them. Carson Wentz experience in full swing over in Minnesota after this past week, and Vikings fans got a real taste of what it's like. And we've seen some real fun flashes from Carson Wentz during the absence of J.J. McCarthy, but this past week was the reality of what Carson Wentz is as a quarterback. He can only take you so far until the cracks start to pop. But the big question for me now is that we finally got in this game from Carson Wentz, and the uncertainty is really there now for this team offensively. I'm a little bit anxious for this team and just what the offense is going to look like once J.J. McCarthy gets back, because you only have really like what feels maybe 1-2 quarters at best of good football out of the limited action we saw from JJ McCarthy this year. And outside of those 1, maybe 2 quarters worth of play, it was not good. So there's plenty to question about this team right now. The defense is still thankfully good enough to keep them in games and hang around, but I don't know, man. You felt like maybe you had at least something for the time being while Carson Wentz was holding down the fort, but now you're just like, eyes are starting to turn to when JJ McCarthy gets back, and I don't know. I really don't know what to say about this team and what this offense could look like when he gets back into the fold. Cowboys right above them. Offense as explosive as I anticipated them being with CeeDee Lamb returning. I mean, George Pickens has been unbelievable with Dak Prescott in the absence of CeeDee Lamb. Like, their connection is amongst the best in the NFL, even just like statistically speaking. When you look up numbers from a quarterback to a specific receiver, they're amongst the top 10 in the NFL, and they might even be top 5 if I'm remembering correctly when you just go across some of the numbers. But now that CeeDee Lamb is back, it's only going to get crazier. And that was what I anticipated going into that matchup when we previewed that game, and we absolutely got it and then some. I mean, you have so many capable pass catchers on this offense for Dak Prescott to get the football to, and he's playing extremely well. But with CeeDee Lamb in the fold now, George Pickens can benefit off of that as well. Either George can have a big game or CD can have a big game. Like, one or the other, you pick your poison. Jake Ferguson has looked like one of the best tight ends in the NFL catching the football, and Javonte Williams even benefiting too. He's already had a really good year, and now that defenses have to respect the combo of George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, he's going to face some light boxes, and he's going to take advantage because he's already taken advantage of the opportunities he's gotten, and he hasn't had that duo at wide receiver every single game this season, and he's had those big games, so it's only going to get better for this offense. If the defense can just find a way to put it together for 4 quarters every single week, even if it's maybe 3, and you have like a bad quarter, Dallas could be something. They're 3-1 right now. They're in a good spot. That was a really big, especially divisional win on top of that. I like the trend that we're getting from them, at least offensively. You just got to see some improvement for that defense. Panthers right above them, winners of 4 straight games. Even if this one was really ugly, 13-6 win. Now Bryce Young also dealing with a high ankle sprain. Rico Dowdle really feels like he might be stealing the running back 1 job from Chuba Hubbard, but at this point now, I guess the question really is just the health of Bryce Young. And this is such unfortunate timing because you're finding yourself as a team, you're on a hot streak, literally, one of the hotter teams in the NFL right now with the winning streak you're working with, and then you ultimately lose your starting quarterback. Andy Dalton will be fine. He's a pro's pro. He can operate an offense. He's been in Carolina for a while, so you got to feel good about him working with Dave Canales here, but we just have to, I guess, see what happens with this team now going forward, minus a Bryce Young. We'll find out the value of him in this offense and what he means to them without him in the picture if he misses some time. Falcons above them. So much talent on the offense, so much talent on the defense, and the defense is really good in my opinion. But Penix, as he continues to grow and work through his first, at this point, he might have started a full season's worth of games, or he might be a few short. If I didn't look up the numbers, so shame on me for that. But he's got to be close if he's not already there. And he's still learning. He's still growing. There are moments where you see him misfiring, and you feel like what you're watching should almost like look better than it does. And I just think back to his playing days in college, man, and I would have thought he'd be further along by now. And I don't want to say he's holding back this offense, but there is a piece of me that kind of feels like that. And again, it's a shame because I really like the way this defense is progressing this year. They've done a great job getting after the quarterback, which was such a bad problem for them last year. The secondary is really, really good. They've hit on some guys. Watts has been unbelievable for them as a 3rd-round pick. So there's a lot to like about this team. Got to get more consistent play from Michael Penix. If you can get more consistent play from him, Bijan Robinson is one of the best players in the NFL right now, and he is playing at an unbelievable level. You have a talented wide receiver in Drake London, one of the best in the NFL, an uber physically gifted and talented tight end as well in a Kyle Pitts. You have so much to work with here. Just got to get a little bit more consistent play out of Michael Penix. Jaguars above them. Definitely feels like we have seen this team be a little bit exposed. I've not really been super on the band. Like I've been very much like 50-50 on what this Jaguars team is. And even as they were sitting in a spot of, weren't they 4-1 if I'm remembering correctly? Maybe I'm forgetting that. If I'm misremembering, that's fine. Just correct me in the comments. I don't care. But there was a point in time where you looked at this Jaguars team and you were like, wow, here they are. This is their record. Not really sure if I believe it, but they are here, so you kind of have to respect it type deal. Now we're starting to, I think, see the reality of this football team, and I think the conversation surrounding Trevor Lawrence is, at this point, fair. He's been in an unfortunate situation with the amount of turnover he's seen as far as coaching staffs are concerned. And honestly, at this stage right now, again, I do think there is fair criticism because you haven't seen him elevate to that level that he was touted to be able to get to when he was coming out of college. I almost want to see Trevor Lawrence somewhere else. I don't think it's going to work in Jacksonville, and the defense on top of that is just still abysmal, and they have no answers for the pass this season. They were one of the worst passing defenses last year. They continue to do that this year as well. I'm ready for Trevor Lawrence to play somewhere else, and unfortunately, because of the contract he's working on, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But I am very much with like the trend that we've been seeing of like other quarterbacks go from one place to another and ultimately end up being a better player and benefiting from that, a la Sam Darnold, Geno Smith for a stretch run. And Mac Jones is honestly an example you have from this year. Mac Jones literally looks like the best quarterback out of that draft class at this point, and he's only played 4 games for San Francisco, but he's looked fantastic in relief of Brock Purdy. I'm almost kind of ready to see Trevor Lawrence somewhere else, and I want to see that happen sooner rather than later. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon, but I'm kind of in that boat where, yes, this team's at 4-3. It sounds kind of crazy to be talking like that at this point with a winning record. Something tells me that winning record is going to be kind of short-lived. And then right above them to round out the category, just outside the playoffs, best team of this 500 category, in my opinion, and it's by a margin. If I could fit them into the playoff contender, Super Bowl contender category, I would, but I can't have 15 teams there. It has to be 14. The Bears. The offense now getting back-to-back weeks of really strong play, not only from DeAndre Swift, but now even Kyle Monangai is starting to get into the mix. That is only going to open up this offense. And I'm somebody who has not been super high on Caleb Williams, but I made it a point this year to make sure I really pay attention to him in this Ben Johnson offense, because if anything was going to fix him, it was going to be this scheme that he was going to bring. And I'm starting to think we're seeing that. We are getting some real flashes. And something that I think is really underrated about Caleb Williams is just his delivery of the football. The way it comes out of his hand, it just looks like a missile, and it's a beautiful throw. So I'm starting to really like what the Bears have cooking right now. You couple that with a defense that is just literally ripping the souls out of opposing offenses right now. We're talking 15 takeaways in their last 4 games, 4-4-3, and 4 turnovers in back-to-back games. That's not something that happens too often. That's also not something that happens by accident. This team's buying into Ben Johnson. This defense is in a really good spot right now, and they're going after the football. And coincidentally enough, if I'm remembering, I really hope that I'm not wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure Dennis Allen's the defensive coordinator in New Orleans, known for being aggressive in years past. Well, he was there for getting after the football. Interestingly enough, he goes to Chicago. Now he's their guy, and here we are. He's turning this defense into a turnover machine. So, with that being said, love the trend the Bears are on right now. The offense is really starting to balance itself out and round into form. Run game's getting real good, and that's obviously a big sign of a Ben Johnson-led offense. Defense is a force to be reckoned with. Would not be surprised to see this team climb into the categories above them in the next week. Now we can start looking at the playoff hopefuls. And of course, as always, a reminder, the way these categories work, 14 teams, 7 from each conference. We must have all 8 division winners from the 8 divisions rather. And then of course, you have 3 teams from each conference to round out the wild card teams. So beginning with the Chargers sitting at the bottom of the group, followed by the 49ers, the Bills, Broncos, Patriots, Steelers, Rams, and then the Buccaneers taking quite a tumble from the top spot that I had them at for a little bit of time there. We'll start, though, of course, with this Chargers team. The O-line situation is really where this starts and stops for me. It's unfortunate. You don't even get Rashawn Slater to start the year. Joe Alt gets taken out almost immediately as well. You have Mekhi Becton coming in and out of the game at certain points. Justin Herbert was pressured. a whopping 35 times in this game. And despite all that nonsense, was still able to throw for 400 yards passing. I don't know who, and if I'm getting his name wrong, I apologize. I don't know who Orande Gadsden is. I didn't even know he was receiver on the Chargers. I do my best to be privy of everything going on in the league, but things like this get by me. 164 yards and a receiving touchdown. Not really sure where he came from. Have a day. Have a big moment for you. Unfortunate it came in a loss. The Chargers' offensive line will be what kills this team ultimately. The defense was clearly just not ready for what Indianapolis is bringing, and I don't think anyone at this current stage in the NFL season is really ready for what the Colts are bringing to the table offensively. But for the O-line situation to look the way it is, you're working with like your third string, fourth string running backs at this point right now because both Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton are dealing with what they're dealing with. It's unfortunate for the Chargers, and for a team that started out as good as they were and are just dropping games now left and right, they still have a chance as they get healthier to get back in the swing of things. Hopefully Joe Alt gets back sooner rather than later. Still feel like they're a playoff team, but they are hanging on by dear life. 49ers above them. The team just defies all odds. The amount of injuries that this team has, it's funny because you go to watch that Sunday Night Football, and this is what I love about these primetime games, because you get those lineups that they put up in front of, and everyone introduces themselves, and it's the whole thing. And I'm watching them introduce the defense of San Francisco, and I'm just asking, I'm like, half these guys, because PFF does their grading, whether you like them or not is not the conversation we're having here, but they do their grading, they show it on the broadcast. I want to say 6 or 7 of the starting guys on that defense didn't even have a grade because it's their first time starting for the team, or they've only really played like one other game for them as a starter. This team defies all odds and all logic with the fact that they have a hospital ward literally built into their locker room at this point, it feels. Christian McCaffrey, well, Mac Jones deserves a ton of love, but Christian McCaffrey needs to be in the MVP conversation. I am personally sick and tired of the MVP award being a quarterback's award. Makes zero sense. There are players that are valuable to their teams in ways that can sometimes go beyond just quarterback play. Christian McCaffrey, for somebody who is the only player to have, I believe, 450 yards receiving and rushing in a season to this point in the year, and the last time that happened was by a running back. Now I'm blanking on the running back's name, and shame on me for that, but he won the MVP award that year. Christian McCaffrey deserves to be in that conversation. I can't name a defensive player, it feels like, on the 49ers right now with how banged up they are. And you have Mac Jones leading this team to a 4-0 run with him as the starter. The team makes no sense, but they're 5-2, and clearly their roster is deep. And shout out some of those guys out there that I don't have names for, because it's unbelievably impressive what they're doing. The Bills above them actually sliding back this week, because after the way ATL lost, and then now looking at where they stand and where Buffalo is, it makes that loss look a little bit worse than it already did. So Buffalo, we'll see what they look like coming back, but not a good look going into your bye week. And then when the results shake out the way they do during your bye week and make me feel like you need to get dropped, and I try to be pretty good about leaving teams on bye weeks where they are, not a good sign. Broncos right above them. It took 3 quarters of football and some change for the offense to come to life and start putting points on the board. And I genuinely cannot believe that they got 33 points up and they got that game-winning field goal the way they did. I don't know if words can really put in, I don't know if you can really describe what that was, but unbelievable. And you've got to give credit to Sean Payton, to the defense, Bo Nix. I mean, you name it, the kicker, like everyone deserves some massive credit for not folding in that game and just calling it quits when it felt like for 3 quarters and some change, nothing was working for you offensively. For the Giants to be giving you the problems that you were dealing with, it says a lot about the fight that this team has. And as it stands right now, they're 5-2, and they're 5-2 for a reason. This is a good team. It's not perfect. The offense definitely has shown some big flaws this season, but they're built on really good defense. They're well coached, and they have a winner at quarterback. Regardless of how you feel about Bo Nix as a QB, he is a winner. I definitely believe that. Patriots above them, Drake May. Best deep ball in football right now, completing over 80% of his passes when he's going deep. That's passes beyond 20 yards or more. Obviously, finishing this past week with a New England franchise record of 91.3%. Tom Brady never got over 90 in the regular season. He did have a game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, though, in the playoffs, but that's not recognized because it's a playoff game. So he has done it before. He's not the only New England quarterback to do so, but he's the only one recognized in the record book. Go see if you can find the game I'm talking about. It's a playoff game that he did it in. That being said, Kayshon Boutte continues to emerge. Ramondre Stevenson, a lot of people maybe owe him some apologies because Mike Vrabel was willing to commit to him as his running back despite some of the fumbling issues he had run into this season. But after this past week, it feels like maybe he found himself. And that's great for him because I think he is a great player and he's a great piece to this team. And I know Mike Vrabel values what he brings to this team's table based off everything I hear him say about Ramondre when he gets asked about him. So it's good to see that all of that paid off in Vrabel's favor and in Ramondre's favor, where he's not being benched or getting traded away or something along those lines. Like everything kind of worked itself out. So Kayshon Boutte emerging, Stephon Diggs obviously doing his thing. You're getting some big plays even from a Demario Douglas, who some people were kind of wondering where he had been to this point in the season. Defense has its hiccups early, but continues to figure, like you get into like that middle portion of the second quarter to once you hit the third quarter, that defense just starts to clamp down and nobody's getting past them. And it's really impressive to watch. So New England 5-2, weak schedule. They're definitely benefiting from that, but they're beating bad teams pretty handedly, and they have that win over Buffalo. It's easy to point to the schedule and say that this team is benefiting from that, but you take away even maybe one turnover that they had against Pittsburgh, and we're looking at a team that's 6-1, and we're having a wildly different conversation about this Patriots team right now. It's really unfortunate that they dropped that game against Pittsburgh because I think everyone would look at this team in a far different light as a team that's just beating up on a weak schedule type deal with a win over a division rival Buffalo Bills team. Steelers right above them at 4-2. You got to wonder where the defense went in this one. There's two things. The defense obviously just kind of falling apart. Got to stop the run. You got to have an answer for a division rival who has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. You cannot just allow yourself to get cooked the way you are every time you're going up against those two guys. Like that has to be figured out. But also these Thursday night struggles that Mike Tomlin has been dealing with for the duration of his career is definitely something to be studied. We talked about it in the game preview for that. I really did not expect Cincinnati to win that game. I definitely thought they could make it interesting. It's always gritty and it's always a fight in the AFC North. And no matter the records of anyone, any team can beat any team in that division. Does not matter where any of those teams stand, except for the one season when the Browns went 0-16 and 1-15. I think that's probably like the lone case of that not being true. But beyond that, that's how the AFC North plays itself out. And the Steelers even had this game won, and you ultimately blew it late. So again, where the hell was that defense, man? Because prior to that game, you go to those first two of the season and you go, yeah, the defense figuring itself out did not look great. And then from that point up until this past Thursday, it looked like they figured it out. From the pass rush to turnovers being made, like everything that they were doing seemed like, okay, first couple of weeks or maybe just kind of they were figuring themselves out sort of thing with some new key pieces in the defense. Now you're wondering, what is this defense actually? Because you have 3 games of poor defensive play. You have 3 games of good defensive play. So it's like 50-50 one way or the other, depending on what you're getting. Rams right above them. No Puka, no problem. Devontae Adams, 3 touchdowns off the 5 that Matthew Stafford had. The Jaguars are not good, and the Rams, they're a good team. They're well coached. They've got a franchise quarterback who, crazily enough, coming into the season, I myself included, worried about the health with the back conversation and the injury that he was dealing with coming into the year and just how he was actually going to look this season. And if you were to tell me that Matthew Stafford's best game this season, at least in terms of just like production for putting points on the board, was going to come in a game where there was no Puka Nacua, I would not have believed you. But they're finding ways to win even without a Puka. It's a miracle the defense didn't force a single interception in this game because they had 19 pressures and 7 sacks. Like they were all over Trevor Lawrence in that game, and it was a nightmare. I mean, like Jacksonville's blessed they even got the score that they did in that game, because that was all Rams from start to finish. There was never a real moment once the Rams went up 14, I was kind of like not checked out of the game, but when, okay, yeah, this is the Rams W, and I don't really foresee that changing. Buccaneers, obviously coming off of a really ugly loss to Detroit. It just looked like they were physically outmatched. Like they were just not ready for what that Lions team brought in terms of physicality. They were not able to slow down Jahmyr Gibbs the way I anticipated them to. They'd been one of the best run defenses in the NFL going into that game, and then ultimately Gibbs just had his absolute way. You also have the unfortunate injury and really scary moment as well with Mike Evans going down. The broadcast for that was so weird to watch them kind of like dance around the fact that Mike Evans was just out like a light on the ground as they were talking about whether that was potentially a catch or not was just the most bizarre thing ever. You hope that Mike Evans is okay. I hope this team can bounce back. They're banged up. They're missing key guys like no Bucky Irving, obviously, in this game here. And even with Emeka Egbuka playing, there's a piece of me, I was very surprised. Because when I even previewed that game, I talked about it. I said myself, I did not think it was likely that we were going to see Emeka Egbuka. Like, it felt like Mike Evans was back, but that was fine. And, like, that's so unfortunate what happens. But I didn't expect Emeka Egbuka to play, and I'm kind of sitting here wondering now if that was even the right move to rush him back like that. And I know Emeka convinced everyone, hey, I'm ready to go. I can play. Like, that's fine. I just feel like maybe you probably should have not. There was no reason to have him out there. I don't think it changes the result if he is in the game or not, but I just feel like with the way that game played itself out, hindsight's always 20/20, probably didn't need him to play in that game. But we'll see where Tampa Bay goes from here. I still really like the team. Baker Mayfield has had a really good season at this point. Obviously not his best game on this Monday Night Football matchup. I think they'll be okay, but not the performance I was expecting. Like, I didn't think we were going to get just 9 points out of their offense. I thought, they could hang around if they were going to lose this game. It wouldn't be a loss like that. I would have expected them to maybe go down swinging by like 3 or 4 or something along those lines, not even cross single digits of scoring on their own. Looking at the Super Bowl contenders category to wrap it up here, we start at the bottom with the Lions, followed by the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Packers, the Seahawks, and at the top of the list, the Indianapolis Colts. Cannot believe I'm saying that. We'll get to that in a second. The Lions' entire secondary is filled with guys who were not your starter week number 1. I gave them no chance. I did not think they'd be able to slow, especially when I found out that Emeka Egbuka and Mike Evans were playing. Again, hindsight is always 20/20, but with the secondary being in tatters the way it was, did not think they'd be able to slow things down for that passing attack in Tampa Bay. Then you see the running game. Jahmyr Gibbs continuing to do what he does best, and that is run faster than everyone else and break away for monster scores. I also want to give a ton of praise to defensive coordinator Kelvin Shepard. I can't believe I'm saying that because I remember when Kelvin Shepard got into the league, and for him to have played his entire career to this point already and he's now coaching is crazy to me because that's how I know I'm getting older, and I'm not that old, but that makes me feel old. He deserves so much credit for what he's doing right now, and to be able to hold Tampa Bay to just 9 points with a unit that is, again, dealing with a lot right now. They're getting healthier up on the defensive front, so that is huge for them. Like, Aleem McNeil made it back this week. Like, a lot of good things happening on that front, but the back end is just, again, your entire starting secondary is not the same unit it was week 1 when you came into the season. That's how banged up they are. You've got to give that man some credit. You can say what you want about the offense and how exciting it is and how electric it is. It's all great. It's all fun. Very easy to praise. Offense is sexy. You love to love offense. But what he's got going on over there with that defense right now, that dude deserves all the love and then some because they are not in a perfect position right now. And for them to be able to hold Tampa Bay the way they did was impressive work. Chiefs right above them. The worst sentence to every football fan's ears, I would imagine, at this point in the year of 2025. The Chiefs are back. 31-0 win, and Rashee Rice had not only the dream game of his fantasy owners that stashed him up until that point, but the dream game that the Chiefs wanted him to have in his return. He looked like he was ready to rock and roll, no rust. That was the best case scenario you could possibly have asked for Rashee Rice's return game. The offense can now revolve around your two young stud wide receivers in Rice and Xavier Worthy. Travis Kelce does not need to be the focal point of the offense. He can be a beautiful complement who benefits from all the attention going at those two wide receivers, and we saw that happen in this game as well. The run game is going to only open up more and more for this offense, and Patrick Mahomes is going to be Patrick Mahomes. The rest of the AFC is definitely in trouble right now. This is a big overcorrection because if you're looking at the board right now, at where the Bears are at this current moment is where I had the Chiefs last week, and I probably should have had them higher than I did, but I'm doing this massive overcorrection now so I don't have to play catch up later. If that's the Chiefs from these last 2 weeks, Super Bowl contender indeed. Above them, the Philadelphia Eagles, who apparently are now a pass-first offense as the run game just continues to have a difficult time of getting going. But Jalen Hurts comes in, no big deal. People keep saying, I can't throw the football, can't throw the deep ball. Well, what does he do? He throws the football, throws the deep ball. Devontae Smith comes away with the best game of his career to this point in terms of yardage. 326 yards passing, 304 of those yards and a couple of touchdowns, one to each of him and A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith being him. They can get it done however they need to get it done, apparently. And yes, the offensive concerns are definitely still there. Some of that noise is still there. But any sort of issue that A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith were maybe having regarding this offense, if that's the direction they go going forward, you can forget about it. And honestly, if it works, it works. This is not going to be the first time that we've seen Philadelphia be a team that can throw the football with the best of them. You go back to that Philadelphia Eagles team that made it to the Super Bowl the first time against the Chiefs. That team could throw the football pretty effectively. Jalen Hurts could throw the football pretty effectively. That's like pre-tush-push era. So if that's going to be what they're doing, it's going to be a long season for a lot of the doubters and haters. You look at the defense, too. Only 89 yards rushing allowed, which is the best performance they've had this season against the run. First time they've been sub 100 yards rushing. And on top of that, you had a couple of big turnovers, big interceptions off of Carson Wentz. The Eagles may have figured it out. They may have figured it out. And I was wavering on them. I was doing my best to not drop them too far because I believe in this team. And it feels like we go through this every year where they hit that random point in the year where they either are going to go south or they're going to go north. Last year they went north. The year prior they went south. This feels like they might be going north again. Packers above them at 4-1-1. Not a perfect team offensively by any means, but I think something that's getting lost on a lot of people here is that they still don't have Christian Watson back, and they lost Jaden Reed week 2 of the season, if I'm remembering correctly, to that collarbone injury. Just wait till those guys get back in the fold. This offense will start to open up and be what it's supposed to be, and it's still a pretty good unit. It's not perfect, but you have a good defense. That trade for Micah Parsons at this point in time makes the front office and the Packers organization as a whole look like absolute geniuses, because one does have to wonder what this pass rush would have looked like without him, because I believe he's basically flirting with about half the total team pressures as a individual player, never mind the fact that he's coming up with big sacks in crucial key moments to help this team come away with a win. Against a Cardinals team they should not have been struggling against the way they did. This Packers team is high on this list, especially for some of the performances we've got. But I can't ignore the fact of what they're missing from the offense right now and where I think this team can go once those two guys are back in the fold. And it sounds like Christian Watson is close, and we're now 4, maybe 5 weeks removed from the collarbone injury of Jaden Reed, which means he should be coming back pretty soon as well. And then I think we're going to really start to see what this Packers team is all about. Seahawks above them. So much praise to go around on this team, from literally like the offense to the defense to the coaching staff as a whole. You got to start with Mike McDonald. What he has done for this defense in the last 2 seasons alone is mind-boggling, because he completely came in, flipped the script. He was like, we're moving guys, I'm bringing guys in, and he has turned this unit into one of the most threatening defenses, not only in the NFC, but in the NFL as a whole. But for me, the real sticking point right now, because I blasted them about this coming into the season, and I did not think it was going to work, and I'm still eating my words, and I'll happily admit that every week if I have to, the O-line has turned into one of the best in the NFL at protecting Sam Darnold and making him feel comfortable. We've all seen what Sam Darnold can look like when he's not comfortable. It is not a pretty sight, and it's one of those things that we have to keep in mind as the season progresses and we get closer to the important games in the year, a la the playoffs. But from what the O-line is doing, and protecting Sam Darnold to what Sam Darnold himself is doing and the connection that he has built with Jackson Smith and Jigba, who right now has a real conversation for being best wide receiver in the league. Like, I know everyone likes to default to Justin Jefferson, or maybe like there's a Jamar Chase crowd out there as well. Jackson Smith and Jigba's taken a leap this year, and it's kind of insane to be watching the way he's playing. And mind you, this is a guy that was paired up with a DK Metcalf or a Tyler Lockett for some time and never really had the opportunity to like be that guy. And now that he is that guy, he is running away with that opportunity to the tune of leading the league in receiving and looking like one of the most dominant wide receivers, if not the most dominant wide receiver in the NFL right now. So there's a lot of good going on with Seattle. I got to give them praise. There's obviously a flaw or two here or there that you could point at, but I feel like it's nitpicking with this team, and what they're doing right now is working, and it's working pretty damn effectively. And then to round it all out, at the number one spot, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but as the lone team with 6 wins in the NFL right now, Indianapolis is extremely good. The defensive turnaround with Lou Anarumo leading things over there is incredible to me, but it really starts and stops with what this offense is doing right now. And it's about damn time that the Colts have competent quarterback play coming from Daniel Jones, because this team has been loaded for a little bit, and they finally kind of rounded out the group, bringing in Tyler Warren. This wide receiver room's been deep for a few years now, very deep and very talented. Jonathan Taylor, when he's healthy, case for best running back in the NFL. I called him the second best behind Bijan Robinson last week, and then I came out of this week feeling like, okay, maybe Jonathan Taylor is actually the best. So I'll probably flip-flop on that all season long, but as of week 8, I think he's the best in the NFL. We literally flipped in 1 week, so we'll see how many times that happens between he and Bijan as the season progresses. But Bijan has his case too. Then you have the tight end, Tyler Warren, Penn State guy. Go out, you get him. Leading the league in receiving for tight ends right now. He looks like the best tight end in the NFL at this current moment. And you're finally getting yourself great QB play out of Daniel Jones. Whether it's Daniel Jones, whether it's all those key players around him. Oh, and the offensive line's top 5, something along those lines, I would have to imagine, as far as numbers and metrics go, when you look at the way the Colts have been able to get push in the run game, and also on top of that, the way they protected Daniel Jones. But at this point, whether it's Daniel Jones or all of the talent surrounding him in the offense, it's a perfect marriage, and it's working out extremely well. Nobody's averaging more points than the Colts are per game right now. They are just absolutely annihilating defenses at a crazy rate. I never envisioned this in my wildest dreams coming into this season. I honestly thought the Colts offense might just be another dumpster fire because I did not believe in Daniel Jones, but here we are. I'll openly admit it. We'll see what happens with them, but as it stands right now, by all accounts, they're just rolling through people, and they are an Adonai Mitchell fumble at the goal line because he was celebrating too soon before scoring away from being 7-0 and being the NFL's lone undefeated team. Like, they're a mental error away from potentially being the only undefeated team in the NFL through 7 weeks. Like, that's insane to me to think about, that's where this team is right now. We'll see where this Colts team goes from here. As it stands right now, they're number 1. The Colts fan in me cannot believe I'm saying that and letting that come out of my mouth, but here we are. It might sound biased to you. For those of you that have been around for a while, though, you know I have blasted Indianapolis up and down for literally the 4-ish and some change years that I've been doing this show now. I by no means let my bias as a Colts fan growing up let me dictate how I discuss them. I let them know how I feel about them. And I'll honestly say I cannot believe what I'm witnessing right now. But I have to respect what they're doing. So those are my rankings going into week number 8 and my thoughts on this past weekend slate of games. As always, you made it to the end. I greatly appreciate it. Comment down below. Let me hear from you. Make sure you're subscribed. I will see you all again tomorrow as we begin making predictions for week number 8, beginning with the Thursday night football matchup. So until next time, have a good one.